So many of you know Marlene from her blogs, petitions, her work in the community as an author, a lobbyist, in the media, or as Andrew's mother. And Marlene lives in PEI. She is a former employment and insurance officer for 36 years with Service Canada. In her job, she saw many, many people suffering from serious mental illness. She tried to help clients with jobs, connecting them to programs and other types of employment programs. Marlene's an author. Marlene has authored several books. Her inspirational stories have been published. Her latest book is The Magic Toothbrush and J Magic Wheelchair. She goes into schools and has interactive sessions with her children. In her blog, something really stood out to me. She said, in children's books, like The Little Engine That Could, it teaches children about optimism and hard work. You have been on that. So she said she had been on that train for many years, lobbying for Andrew, lobbying for CTO. And her motto is, I think I can make a difference. And she certainly has made a difference. And I just am thrilled to have her. Also, in 1998, she received the Order of PEI, and in 2023, an honorary Doctor of Laws degree from the University of Prince Edward Island. She has a beautiful family, and I hear her cookies are famous. She plays cards with friends, and she's involved in the community. I want to welcome my new friend, Marlene. Welcome to our
Thank you.
series. So let's get started. Tell us a little bit about life in PEI when the kids were little, and a little bit about Andrew and how he was.
Well, Andrew was your typical little boy, always a quick wit, and even when he was a little guy, he would sit at our kitchen table, and for fun, he would say, Dad, give me some math problems. And, like his father would graduate him from, 8 to 28 and 28. Like Andrew really loved that and thrived on it. Actually, his father is a financial analyst. And so Andrew was taking after his dad. And as you probably know, Andrew was an assistant bank manager at the time that he got ill. And he would have been the next manager of that bank had the illness not hit. So that's a sad part of his story.
So let's find out who's in your family. You have a husband?
Yes.
Children, grandchildren?
I have a husband, and there's Andrew, who's 39, and our daughter, who lives in British Columbia. And actually, during the time that we were working on Andrew's survival, my husband helped by deciding to take over all the chores inside and outside the home. And so that gave me time to devote about 10 hours per day to the actual doing posts, talking to the media, writing letters, all kinds of things consumed 10 hours every day. So I had to choose what I could do. And I chose to do that particular thing and leave the rest to Lloyd, because that was the only way we could work as a team and make this thing work.
And you know what? You do have to have people we've all caregivers, we all have family members with serious mental illness, and you can't do it alone. You need help from family, from friends. And so I'm glad you did get your help, and Lloyd sounds like a real gem. So Andrew, as a child, what was he like? Was he good in school? Like, this is in primary school. Did he have friends? Was his marks good? Did he show signs of depression, signs of mental health? Like, what was he like?
Yeah. No signs of mental health at all. Andrew was an A student. He excelled in sports. He, as a youth bowler, he was a national champion twice. He got into marathon running. And so he's been in 15 marathons, and he also excelled at baseball. So he was a PEI all-round athlete. So Andrew, we thought, when you're a parent and you have your child in the nest, we thought that we had Andrew to the point that he was going to fly, and he did. Uh, he got his BBA, he's bilingual, and then he got his really good job with the bank, and we thought everything looked pretty rosy for Andrew. But then the illness hit 6 years ago.
So let's, we're gonna go further back because we're getting up to that point. Because he was a straight A student. He was
Yes.
great in sports. He had friends. And in high school, what was he like? And
Actually, like he was the same. He attended youth group as a youth leader, and then eventually he became a deacon in his church. And so Andrew was well loved by everybody, and so that's why I think that this story is hitting hard for a lot of people, because a lot of people felt really badly when it was determined that Andrew went missing, and that he had a serious mental illness.
it touches families. I mean, I know how my own family and my other children are impacted by it. How about your daughter? And has she been impacted by,
Oh,
and has she been involved?
definitely. We get Facebook messages from her all the time. We talk to her um, on video, and she's always asking how her brother is doing. And it was heartbreaking for her when we kept telling her that Andrew was struggling on the streets of Toronto, and there really wasn't much that we could do because we were 1,000 miles away, and she was worse because she's in British Columbia. But we did the best to keep the communications open between Amanda and our family.
Yeah, and it's tough because sometimes the other child, I know you focus on someone who has the mental health issues, and the other one, you sometimes, needs that attention and has to understand what's going on in the family. After university, after high school, did he go on to university? And then I know some wonderful things happened at that time. I think he was got married, had or met his wife. So can you tell me a little bit about that time?
Well, university life was happy for him. He was living home here and attended University of PEI, and he got involved in the cooperative program, which was a good thing because although it added an extra year onto his university program, it meant that he could go into a business under the cooperative program, and that's eventually who did hire Andrew, because they got to know and love him, and so they kept him.
Is that the time that so he was that's the time when he started to work at the bank and met his he was
And he met
dating
his wife.
his wife. Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
want to talk a little bit about that? And
He actually met his wife online through a Christian chat, and she was from Ontario. And so as a result of that romance, Andrew actually moved to Toronto and worked at Invesco as a training specialist for several years. And so he knew his way around Toronto. And I think that that's why he kind of felt comfortable going back into that area again.
did he get married in Toronto or in
He
PEI?
got married in Ontario,
Mhm.
yes,
And when was
and then and they 2001, and then they moved to the island, and so she established a daycare, and Andrew got a job at CIBC, and so he had a career there for several years, and then he moved on to the credit union, and that's where he was last employed as the assistant manager.
I think he had dreams of being the manager of the bank at that.
Absolutely. He was an aspiring manager, that's for sure.
So when did he get married? And I think he had a couple of children. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, his children now are what, 6 and 9. Yes, little girl and little boy. And when they lived here, they spent a great deal of time with us. And so we felt very, very badly when after the marriage broke up that the children and his ex-wife actually moved back to Ontario. So yes, life was difficult. We had them all through the baby years, and the sleepovers and tea parties and all that kind of thing. So, but we see them on the computer once a week,
Did that happen? The marriage breakup, was that around 6 years ago?
roughly. Yes, because Andrew got sick and he was hospitalized for a month, and then he went on medications. And then shortly after, wasn't maybe a couple months, and it was determined that Andrew was no longer taking his medications. And at that point in time, he refused to see his psychiatrist, and he refused to take any more medications. So as a result, he deteriorated over the next months and years to the point that he left PEI in October of 2022.
I know that 6 years ago you got a call, you're on a cruise ship. And what happened on that phone call? Who was it from? And
Yes, that phone call was from Andrew, and he was telling us that he thought that people at the bank that he was working at were framing him, or going to frame him, for money that was missing. But of course, this was just all in his head as a delusion. And so we didn't know what to think of it, because mental illness was just not in our vocabulary at that point in time. We just didn't understand. So we were to go a week and spend that with our daughter. But instead of that, we decided to pack up and we came right home to get to the bottom of what exactly was taking place. So we had a meeting with Andrew and his employer, and sadly, Andrew decided to quit his job. So that was a very, bad choice. But as you know, with a mental illness, lots of bad decisions happen. And, Andrew just did not realize that he was mentally ill, and that he needed to be on meds, and that he needed to see his doctor. And even today, it's the same situation. Andrew still does not have 100% clarity of thought.
so he has little insight, and it's nausea into his into his illness. And
That's right.
we'll come back to that later when we talk about getting him in the hospital in
Yes.
Ontario, which is impossible these days. When you found out that he quit his job and he had some hallucinations, delusions, was it hard to get him into the hospital? And or did you have to do a form? Was he voluntary?
It was relatively easy to get him into the PEI hospital, but now dealing with the Toronto hospitals was a whole other story. It was a saga. And when I look back at this now, I wonder how we ever managed to deal with the stress that was involved with these hospitals that looked at Andrew and would say, "How are you doing, Andrew?" And Andrew, of course, would say, "I'm fine." And next thing you know, he was being shown the door. So this happened over and over and over. I don't know if you want to hear what happened at each one. I can give you a quick rundown. Exactly. The first time he was at Humber Hospital, and they kept him for 72 hours. And then they decided at 5 o'clock one evening to discharge him. And they discharged him into an impending heat wave. So needless to say, we were not impressed with that. And furthermore, the Andrew's doctor had contacted that hospital and said, we're willing to do a medical transfer. But Humber Hospital wasn't interested.
Well,
And so,
you know what?
they discharged him.
It's a common story. It's a revolving door. And it's just a numbers game trying to get someone in the hospital these days.
Yes.
And,
Oh, yes.
And you know that. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So when Andrew went in the hospital the first time, he was compliant with medication. He lived with you for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then, what happened? How did he get to Toronto? I think he went to Moncton, Halifax, Toronto. I think that was.
Well, after he lived with us for the 2 years, Joni, we helped Andrew get himself established in a really nice apartment that was about a mile from here. And so he lived there, but we could tell that Andrew was slipping. He started to stay away from his friends. And we could tell that we were as welcome as a skunk to a tea party when we would visit, but he did tolerate the visits. We would go visit Andrew every Sunday afternoon after church. And he'd always say, well, it's nice of you to come, but you really don't have to. But one Sunday we went down on October the 22nd, and Andrew said, I have something to tell you, Mom and Dad. I mean, we had a pretty close relationship. And he said, I'm leaving the island and I'm moving to Halifax. And see that U-Haul truck out there? That's what I'm taking. And so the next day, he took off in the U-Haul truck, and we thought he was gone to Halifax. I tried to contact him through the police in Halifax, but to do a wellness check, and they refused to help. So, I mean, you talk about roadblocks. I mean, this is just one of many roadblocks. We didn't know where he was. So we tried to, put in missing persons reports. And a lot of times the police department would not cooperate even in that. We'd say, well, we don't know where he is. That's what missing persons report is for. Well, no, they would turn us down. So then what happened is that I guess it was in October, we got a message from a young man that actually went to school with Andrew, and he was over in the Champlain Mall in Moncton, and he saw Andrew, and he was really upset at Andrew's appearance and the way that he was acting, and he thought that we should know about. So he was kind enough to contact us and let us know that Andrew was at the mall and that clearly Andrew was sick. And so we jumped in the car the next morning, and we went over, and the security guard took us down to Andrew in the mall. And Andrew informed us that, yes, he was homeless on the streets of Moncton, but that people were very kind to him. And I said, but Andrew, where are you sleeping? What are you doing at night? He said, well, I walk at night. Most of the time I walk to keep warm. And so, we pleaded with him. We pleaded, please get in the car and come home with us. You're ill. We need to get you to a doctor, Andrew. And he just said, just go home and I'm staying. And that was the end of the story. I mean, we were just beside ourselves. Anyway, we left, but we didn't go home. We went down to the courthouse and we filed I think it was a Form 11 there. But basically, it's like the Form 2 that's in Toronto. And so we got to meet the Justice of the Peace. So she says, I don't see any evidence here that he's any harm to himself or anybody else. I deny your application. And just about in that tone of voice. And this, of course, is the first time we ever filed a Form 11. So we thought we had all the evidence that we needed to be able to get Andrew apprehended and taken to the hospital for an assessment, to no avail. That did not work. So we didn't know what we were going to do. We went home and we didn't hear from Andrew for a long time. Like, he was just not in contact with us. And until he ran out of money in Moncton, and he contacted and said, I need some money. And we said, like, for what purpose? And so he was a little, we'll say, sparse on the information that he gave us. But at the end of the day, we decided not to give him the money that he wanted. It was a hard decision. But we thought that maybe we could lure him back by not giving him the money that he wanted to carry on with his journey. We knew he was really sick and needed help. Well, we went back home, and the next thing, I'm getting one message after the next message from people in the Toronto Pearson Airport. And they're telling me that Andrew is in the Pearson Airport and that his behavior is drawing attention. Like, he was walking around and running, and he was talking to himself. There was even a lady that sent me a video of Andrew, talking to someone on one side and talking to himself on the other side. Clearly, Andrew needed help, even at that point. But in the meantime, Andrew took another flight and he went to Newfoundland. And we found him in Newfoundland. And he came back, and then people told us he was in the Toronto airport again. So, I have to say, though, that when Andrew landed in Toronto in January, it was cold. And I did contact the police there, and they did finally do a missing persons report. And I must say that the detective that worked with us couldn't be better. He contacted us and gave us all the updates just to kind of give us some peace of mind. And he would tell us where Andrew was. And, what I've discovered is that the police there had some techniques that the PEI police just didn't have at the time. And it's called the Missing Persons Act. We did not have a Missing Persons Act. But what we saw the police doing was checking out his visa records so they could tell where he was eating. They could tell where he was doing his banking. They had video footage of him renting a car at the airport. There was all kinds of things that they had in their toolbox that were enabling them to do a thorough investigation. So, of course, once I got that bee in my bonnet, I started lobbying the PEI government, and we eventually got the Missing Persons Act last September. Yeah.
That's fabulous. So this is January 2023. He comes to Toronto, and then Mama Bear goes right into action. I don't know if you've ever done these Facebook posts before, or press releases, or petitions, or, you had, just tell us the story about how people were clocking Andrew, how you got your blog going, how you connected with community groups, because you are one incredible woman.
Well, thank you.
I call you Super Mama Bear.
Yeah, well, Mama Bear will never give up. I put that on every post that I put out. I put daily posts out on Facebook. And, I dubbed myself Mama Bear. And I told Joni that I like props. So my husband gave me these slippers, Mama Bear, for Christmas. I thought that was a very appropriate gift under the circumstances. I guess how I got into the idea of using Facebook is I'm a children's storybook author. And so I quite often would post into PEI community groups like PEI Good News Only and PEI News Now. And So I was well acquainted with the community group concept. So I was really comfortable with it. So also over my 40 years of volunteering, I, of course, was very comfortable working with the media. So I was quite familiar with the press releases and doing interviews and things like that. So, but I was very fortunate. It wasn't long when I started doing my research into finding some Toronto community groups that this lady by the name of Lena came to my rescue. And Andrew was walking probably anywhere from 40 to, well, 15 to 40K per day. And he could do that easily because he's a marathon runner. And so Lena would actually chart where Andrew was, and at the end of the day, his final destination. And we would tell people how many K that he walked that day. Now, how this was all taking place is that Lena would say, okay, he's on Yonge Street. I anticipate he's going to be in this area or this area. Let's try these community groups. So then I would join those community groups. They would actually let me join. I'd explain to them, our son has been missing. I need your help. I need you to take photos of our son and give me the date, time, and location. And people responded by the hundreds. First of all, it was a big deal that these community groups even allowed me into their group because I wasn't from the area. And I thought that that was going to be a real blockage for me. But no, I had groups like Bath Wilson Moms, Young Lawrence Village Parents, Everything Jewish Toronto, Etobicoke Moms, Pink and Blue. I mean, the list goes on. And so at the end of the day, I had probably 100 different community groups that I was working with. Andrew would move, I'd contact. And they would tell me, he's in front of No Frills. And somebody would send me a note and say, I bought him orange juice. And somebody else would send a message and say, I got him cereal. And, there was even days where people would tell me what Andrew was like. Some would say, Andrew seems to be very tired today, or Andrew seems to be in pain today. And so I was kept abreast of not only his whereabouts, but how Andrew was actually doing, which is pretty amazing. I mean, most of the days that Andrew was in Toronto, I knew where he was almost every day. And the days that I didn't know, I was frantic because, I think I counted on the people of Ontario to give us the peace of mind so at least we could sleep at night. And I have so much gratitude and appreciation to the Ontario residents who actually adopted our son. They really did. They adopted him. They ensured every day that he got food and that he got water and money and clothing. And, I could not believe the response. I mean, I had people that drove transit buses watching for him. I had people that were walking to work that were watching for him. I had people that actually went in their cars and searched for Andrew when they knew that he was in a certain area. I had people go into restaurants and spot him and send me a text right away and say, he's in Tim Hortons today. Then I get another text saying he's at Shoppers Drug Mart. He had his places that were go-to, like the Metro grocery store and No Frills and so on. So, but I counted on the Ontario people just to keep me abreast of what was going on. Really, it kept our sanity because the stress level was so high, having him there and us here. And I have to say, though, that not all people were nice. I had some people that were very human rights. They told me that I should not be posting pictures on Andrew and that I should not be talking about Andrew. So I sent them a message back and said, I'm sorry, but my son's life is more valuable than any human rights. So I am going to continue. So, it just, it just made me feel badly that people were criticizing and attacking me at a time when, we were as down as out and out as you could get. But anyway, I think when things like that were said to me, I just rose above it and worked even harder.
You certainly did. And I know that you called them Andrew's Angels that helped your son survive. And there was hundreds, I think even thousands across Canada, because I was getting, my network is quite large all over Ontario and all parts of Canada. And people were texting their friends and family, like, look out for Andrew, where's Andrew? And it was truly, I have never seen people do this. And I've never seen someone like you. I mean, my son has been missing, and I mean, I did find him through RSMP, through the police, like you said, but what you did is you really went the extra mile, and people learn to understand about serious mental illness and how hard it is to get your family member help and
Absolutely.
treatment.
I think if anything, Andrew's story has brought a whole new awareness to mental illness, and really put a big bright spotlight on all the pitfalls that a loved one has to go through in order to be able to, like a family member, as a family member has to go through a lot of things to be able to try and help their loved one. But I had lots of help. Maureen Trask came to my rescue as well, and she's a missing persons advocate. And so even now, Maureen and I still talk, and I belong to her peer support group. And also the Carrie McLean from Please Bring Me Home organization. She was very instrumental in helping me in one very influential way. And that was, she suggested that I start a petition, and it was, please bring Andrew home. And so we managed to get 11,022 signatures from people in PEI in Ontario that signed this petition, please bring Andrew home. And as a result of that petition, now I know we're going to be talking about the community treatment order, but I started my second petition, please sign Andrew's community treatment order, and we're up to 1,700, and my goal is 2,000 by the end of February. So those two things, although they're not a document that would be of any significance in a court, public opinion counts, community counts. And so when you tell a politician, there's 11,022 people saying Andrew should come home, that was part of the rationale that I used to go after the Minister of Health and PEI to issue a ministerial order. It's a very rare order for an involuntary admittance to a hospital. And so it got to the point where I didn't know whether he was going to sign it or not. It would actually initiate a medical transfer from Ontario to here. But anyway, I one day said, okay, enough's enough. So I posted that I'm going to protest, and I'm going to have a whole bunch of people arrive in front of the Parliament building. And the next day I got word the ministerial order would be signed. So Andrew was flown home to PEI.
And that has, from my experience, I know people have tried, and I work with the lawyer here who have had, some people have tried to get their family members back from other provinces, whether it's BC or, Nova Scotia and other parts of the country, like you could be Thailand, Costa Rica, whatever, and they have not succeeded. I think you're the only one I know that has succeeded. So you'll have to, it's pretty amazing. You should pat yourself on the back, because I think you're the lone ranger in this, that you have achieved that goal.
Actually, Joni, I'm the squeaky wheel that got the grease. Dear. But Minister Mark McLean, I gotta hand it to him. It was a big decision to make because, like I told you, it's rarely used. And in fact, I think they had to do a lot of research on it before it was actually, realized that it is in the Mental Health Act as a provision to help a mentally ill person, and for them to understand what had to take place to make it happen.
Absolutely. Let's go back. So in October 2020, 2023, well, let's go back to January 2023 to up to October 2024. So Andrew was in Ontario and you knew where he was. People were getting back to you. You're doing your blogs, but then, you really wanted to get him help. You wanted to get him treatment. How did you do that? I think the first hospital was St. Joe's, was it?
Yes. First of all, I want to show you the size of the scribbler. I filled 3 of those with notes of where Andrew was every day. Every day I dreamt so that I knew exactly what was going on. And yes, you're right. It came to the time where we decided that we had to do something more. We filed another form too. And this time, yes, it was St. Joe's. And this was not good at all because they didn't even contact Andrew's doctor. And furthermore, they didn't even tell us when they discharged him. First thing I know, I'm getting a note on Facebook from somebody saying, I saw Andrew on such and such a street. And I'm saying, you saw him where? He's in the hospital. No, he's on such and such a street. And they were right. They discharged him without even telling us. So the next hospital was highly recommended to me. CAMH. They said, if anybody can take the bull by the horns, it'll be CAMH. So we filed, and so the Justice of the Peace said, we don't, normally ask where you would like Andrew to be sent, but do you have a preference? And I said, yes, CAMH. So everything was not rosy there. In fact, it was the worst service that Andrew got anywhere. Andrew did not make it past the ER. And we got a call about 1 o'clock in the morning, and we were asked questions. And basically it was, and if I hear this again, harm to self or others, I swear. I mean, it seemed to be all like they weren't paying attention to how Andrew looked or how Andrew was acting. All they cared about, harm to self and others. So this time we got the call at 1 o'clock in the morning. And so the questions were asked. And at the end of the day, we were told we're going to let him go. So this was like 2 a.m. in the morning. Not only did they let him go, but they let him go. It was pouring rain in the dark, all alone. And there he was, gone from the hospital. That's the treatment that he got at CAMH. As sick as he was, that's what happened. Of course, I have to tell you that I filed a complaint with Humber Hospital, and that was followed up on. And I must say that it was tremendous that they came back and, they didn't say that they were wrong, but they didn't say they were right either. But I'll tell you a little bit more about Humber in just a minute. Then after CAMH, finally, I said to Lloyd one day, you know what? This is not working. You can't keep doing what you're doing and it not working and expect it to work, because it's not going to work. We have to go to Toronto. In the meantime, I get a message from a lady in Toronto, perfect strangers, a nice couple. And what they said was, if you would like to come to Toronto, we will provide you transportation and hospitality. We'll take you to the courthouse. We'll take you to the hospital to visit Andrew if he gets admitted. And I tell you, when we got into the airport, there she was waiting for us. they first thing that they did was they drove us all around Toronto, and they said, you know, he walked this street and he walked this street. And I would see the signs, Eglinton, and I said, oh, I recognize that. I recognize Young. I recognize DuPont. I recognize Dufferin. I had no clue about Toronto prior to this. I mean, I just was not familiar with the city at all. But I tell you now, I can name a lot of streets in Toronto from people telling me that Andrew was on certain streets. And but anyway, so the next morning we got up and we went to the Toronto courthouse. We filed the Form 2, and we were expecting a rough time. This was number 6. We had filed in Hamilton, Ontario as well. And this was number 6. And this was the important one because, I mean, we decided that now was the time, if we were ever going to get Andrew off the streets before winter, this was going to have to be the time. So we were expecting another, I guess you call it a shakedown from the Justice of the Peace to explain why we thought our son should be apprehended. Now, I had been tutored by a mental illness advocate, and her name is Karen Scott Booth. And she actually came to the hospital in Humber with us. And she told us that what we had to do is have collateral damage, or collateral information, everything that we could put down that would justify the Justice of the Peace to say, yes, this form is granted. And we were prepared for another half-hour discussion on why we thought this should happen. The Justice of the Peace talked to us for about 10 minutes, and he said, you know what? You parents have been through such agony. He said, I want to tell you, I'm not going to ask for anything else. I am granting your application. And I'm telling you, I'm just going like this, thinking, we worried about this for nothing. Anyway, we got our Form 2, and then our couple that was looking after us, they took us in the car. And so she had her phone, and so she was able to actually look at what people were posting where Andrew was. And I swear, within a half an hour, we found him at a Tim Hortons. We called the police and said, Andrew is at Tim Hortons on such and such a street, and we have a Form 2 signed in our possession, and so we will meet you there. And so the police came, and we actually saw, as bad as it is, we saw our son apprehended, put in the police car, and then we were advised that he was going back to Humber Hospital. And I thought, no, not Humber Hospital again. But I thought, well, maybe this time things will be different. But anyway, like I told you, Karen Scott Booth met us at the hospital, and we got to see the psychiatrist. Just so happened that the psychiatrist had a locum here on PEI. He looked me straight in the eye, and do you know what he said?
What?
He said, Marlene, I advise you to get your son home as fast as you can, because he'll be another statistic on the streets of Toronto if you don't. And winter's coming. So we said, okay, well, what are you going to do? So he said he's going to do the Form 3, which meant he was going into hospital. And so, I had been dealing with the director of the hospital at Humber before, when I lodged the complaint, and the director came down to see us. He assured us that Andrew was going to be admitted to the hospital. And I can tell you that Andrew got wonderful care at Humber Hospital. The doctor was excellent. And, it gave us reassurance that they wanted now to cooperate with the PEI government to arrange the ministerial order. And so they worked with Andrew's doctor and made that happen. And they worked with Health PEI to make the arrangements for the ambulance and the flight and so on. And so it was a really, really good experience with Humber, and I can't say enough about them. They're wonderful hospital once we got him in.
And how long was he in the hospital for?
He went in, I think around October the 10th, and he left for PEI on November the 9th. And Andrew is technically still in hospital now. And he is getting day passes. And in fact, he was here for supper tonight. And so we have an opportunity to spend time with him. We play cards. He actually was in a bowling tournament on the weekend, and he's qualified now to go to the national tournament. It's in Ottawa in May. And but you know, I got to tell you that this is where the story turns a little sour, because Andrew does not qualify for the community treatment order on PEI.
So you know what, we're gonna stop there because we're gonna come back to talk about it. Some people
Okay.
don't know. I just want to touch on something quickly, sorry. So and we'll talk about this because it goes into the CTO. What medication did Humber put Andrew on?
They tried him with clozapine.
Okay.
Yes.
And so they're continuing it in, which is amazing because that's usually the last choice. So what made them put him on clozapine?
Well, don't forget he was in the hospital before for a month. And I believe that was the medication of choice at that point in time. And probably, you know, the two doctors talked and made the decision they would try. And I got to say that, you know, clozapine is making quite a difference. Like Andrew, we can see glimmers of Andrew now. Andrew's personality is starting to come back. You know, like he'll come in the house, and if there's a load of dishes in the sink that need to be washed, like he'll roll up his sleeves and do the dishes. Next thing I look over, and he's making a big batch of chocolate chip cookies. I mean, like he's socializing. He likes to go out with his friends now, his bowling buddies and his baseball friends. And he's been talking to people at the church. And he's also now talking about going into the marathon, PEI marathon in October. But that's going to depend on a community treatment order.
So tell us about, some people may not know what a community treatment order is. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
And how is it different than other MPI than other provinces?
Well, first of all, it seems like we're the last province to get the Missing Persons Act. We're also the last province to get the community treatment order. And I'll start off by saying that New Brunswick has the gold standard, best in Canada community treatment order. And how do I know this? Because I had two doctors reach out to me. They're actually CTO experts. The first gentleman is Dr. Richard O'Reilly, and the second gentleman is Dr. John Gray. Now, Dr. O'Reilly is from London, Ontario, and Dr. Gray is from Vancouver. Dr. O'Reilly was a psychiatrist for 40 years, and Dr. Gray was a lead author. He was a psychologist and a lead author on a mental illness book. And so they're both very qualified. And what they did was they sent me a document that they wrote. It was called Evolutions and Comparisons. And what it basically was, to boil it down, was a comparison between the proposed PEI CTO and the New Brunswick CTO. Well, the PEI CTO said you had to have 2 admissions that totaled 30 days. Okay, we're in the day and age now where it's a revolving door. How much opportunity do you have to get 30 days and 2 admissions? If you were to go into the PEI hospital 4 times for 7 days each, guess what? You don't qualify for a community treatment order. So in New Brunswick, however, the way it goes is that it's 1 admission for any period of time, or they'll waive that if your behavior is such that they feel you're going to be a harm to yourself or someone else, or that you are deteriorating, which Andrew was doing. So in other words, Andrew would qualify for the community treatment order in New Brunswick, but not the very restrictive one, which I have dubbed the worst community treatment order in Canada. There's been lots of publicity about it. The two doctors actually wrote a big article. It was in our newspaper here, and they basically said, yes, there's a flaw in it. We were in the courthouse in November when the community treatment order was brought and to be, I'm thinking of the word like ratified, but we saw the PC party one by one stand up and vote that they wanted this restrictive community treatment order. In spite of the fact that we had sent them all the information in the doctor's report, this is what they did. In fact, the collaboration that they did with the nonprofits and people was minimal, to say the very least. It turned out that there were 2 answers to emails. There might have been a dozen or more sent, but there was 2. The first one came from Dr. Salaberria, we think, from Department of Health. He's the Director of Mental Health and Addictions. And the other one came from a human rights person. So based on 2 decisions, it was decided that PEI should legislate this very restrictive community treatment order. So a community treatment order is actually done by a psychiatrist for 6 months. And what it allows is police to go and pick up a person who has not taken their drugs. It could be that they're taking them by pill form or they're taking them by needle. And so they would be picked up and taken and given their medications, and then they'd be back. Now, the thing about this very positive intervention is that, you know, I know people are saying, oh, the human rights thing, but think about it. This community treatment order is keeping these people well and out of the revolving door hospital system. So I guess on another point of view, it's saving money because they're out of the hospital system. They're staying well and they have a really good lifestyle as well. So we were hoping that Andrew was going to qualify for this community treatment order, but not so, not so. So now I have been lobbying every day. Every day I am sending my Facebook post to all of the decision makers at the PEI government. And in addition to that, I'm sending it to the media. So I'm letting them know that we need to have an amendment in the spring session, which starts on February the 27th. But Minister McLean says there will be no changes until after 2 years. After 2 years. So I'm saying to myself, they know they've got a restrictive community treatment order, and Andrew and many other Andrews are not going to qualify, but yet they're willing to wait and take the chance that nobody is going to die in the next 2 years because the community treatment order was not issued. Now, to me, that's a pretty high price to pay. I don't understand how an MLA or a minister could not entertain an amendment at this time in the journey. It just doesn't make sense to me. I do have the support of the Green Party. They've been wonderful. They were in the courthouse the day that the decision was made, and there were tears in the eyes of Peter Bevan Baker when the decision was made. He was the leader of the Green Party. And I can tell you that when I was looking at those MLAs and ministers standing up, I really don't think that they were all comfortable with making the decision that they made. Now, there is what they call a government whip, and his name is Zach Bell. And I'm just wondering if it was a whipped, what they call a whipped vote. You will vote this way. I don't know that to be the case, but apparently Peter Bevan Baker asked the premier of the province, was this a whipped vote? And he said no. So we take him at his word that it was not a whipped vote. But it seems strange that all the PC party, they are a majority government on PEI, all voted in favor of this very restrictive community treatment order. That does not make sense to me.
It does make sense to me because community treatment orders does save lives and gets people treatment when it's necessary. And especially if someone has anosognosia, little insight, they don't know that they're not well. And so how are they supposed to get well if they keep getting off their medication and end up leaving home, homelessness, and deteriorating again. And I have to tell you, in Ontario, you can, or you may be on a CTO, and I know from some of my family caregivers that I deal with, some have been on community treatment orders. However, they have family members that appear really well. So it all depends on how you appear in front of the psychiatrist. They say, well, I'm doing great. I don't need this anymore. And they've been taking it for 6 months. And they said, okay, we won't, it's okay. We won't
Reinstate it.
reinstate, that was the word again. And all the time, once they're off, they go off their medication. I know someone who had left the country with a knapsack full of medication. And he left the country because the voices were telling him that he needed to leave because his family was going to kill him. And they found him, the family traced him to another province. They got the police to come and they said, oh, he's a nice young gentleman, very quiet, well behaved. And it's so good that he's taking his medication. He had no clothes, just medication, and they let him go until the person called the doctor in Ontario to call them and say, he's quite ill, please put him in the hospital. And they spoke to the doctors in the other province. Having said that, once he got into the hospital, they also said he seemed great, so they weren't going to keep him. So, I mean, it's just a revolving door, like, trying to get help is very, very difficult, especially if they've been through the system a number of times and they know what the law is and what they can and cannot do. And then there's the rights advisors that get involved. And then, they also have their own lawyers. A lot of my caregivers or family members are going to Supreme Court over CTOs and SDMs and replacing family members. So, I mean, it is difficult to maintain families, for families to keep their loved ones safe.
Yeah, it is. And community treatment order to me is Andrew's lifeline, because this competition that I'm telling you about in May, if Andrew's not on the community treatment order after he leaves the hospital, if he refuses to take medication, we can't predict what Andrew will be like in May, but we assume that he will deteriorate the way that he did the last time. And he may not be able to represent PEI on the bowling team. He could be very sick. In fact, he could be back on the streets again. And that's our worst fear. I mean, that's the only reason why I've been lobbying so hard, because, like I say, it's not just Andrew, it's a lot of other people on PEI that I feel, that the government did not treat them right. I think that Islanders deserve better. And I think that it's important that everyone that can sign the petition. And also, I want to mention that I launched a community treatment order poem, and I'm getting lots of entries. I hope any of you that like to write poems will send me a poem And I send it to all of the decision makers, so they get to read them. I post them every day. And basically it's saying, we need this amendment now, not in 2 years' time. And so it's very clever the way that some of the people have put their words together and said what the message is and made it very eloquent, actually.
I noticed today when I was going through your blogs that we do have some of our caregivers have submitted poems to your CTO poem. And also, if you want to, and I always post the poems and the petition change.org on my emails, for you to get involved in. And one of the poems is, "The CTO has failed the test. We as islanders want the best. You have the power to do what is right. We have been lobbying day and night. Mama Bear never gives up, you see, until an amendment in spring 2024 there be." So
You got it.
yeah, so and I've been reading that they're fabulous. I'm working on one now. It's not great yet, but I'm getting there. And you can also send Andrew mail in the hospital. And I understand a lot of people, and I'm one of them, that have sent, him a letter as well.
And thank you very much for that. I actually put the Hillsborough Hospital address, and Andrew's been receiving hundreds of cards and letters and notes. And, it's really nice that Andrew see how many people helped him when he was in Ontario. I have not had the conversation yet with Andrew about what my involvement was. The time will come when that is appropriate, but right now is not the time. But what I was hoping is that the Ontario people were going to write in their letters, did you know that your mother was making sure that you got food every day? So I think through the back door, Andrew's going to learn exactly what took place, and I guess to what point I had to go to in order to help keep his life, because like I say, he never would survive on the streets in Toronto this winter, because he doesn't use food banks, he doesn't use shelters. So where would he be? -10, equaling 29 degrees, -29 wind chill, I think today in Toronto. Yeah, you can just imagine.
It's lucky that he survived, and it's lucky that, someone he didn't have an altercation, or, something bad could have definitely happened on the streets of Toronto. So thankfully he's back at home with you, and bowling, and, training for a marathon. And Andrew gets out overnight sometimes, and 4 hours during the day to train. And I think he came home for Christmas overnight. So it's great that there's some really good bonding time, and it's not only in the hospital.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Andrew's chair was empty last year at Christmas. We weren't sure where he was. And this year he was here Christmas Eve. He was here Christmas Day. I mean, this was the happiest Christmas ever. And he's back, but now we're scared. How long will this last? How long will it last?
So my question, and it's to all of you and to Marlene, why do us as family members, caregivers, why does it take us so long, or why do we have to endure this abuse to get our kids help? Like, why does it have to be a revolving door? Why is it hard to find a psychiatrist? Why is it hard to try to get the treatment, let's say clozapine, which is very difficult? A lot of psychiatrists are not easy to administer this medication. And so a lot of times, families are not involved, and families should be involved as because they're the lifeline of the patient. And I know that my son has to give authorization for me to be in the in the room for me to be able to speak, and that shouldn't be. We should be there as a family, sharing our stories, giving insight about what our family members doing, if they are deteriorating. And one thing you can do is you can send a letter to the psychiatrist. They're not supposed to divulge what you've written. However, I know some psychiatrists have, and it has developed core relationships with the family, but they're not supposed to. You're able to give some information so that the psychiatrist knows what is going on. I want to open it up to the floor now to see if anyone has any questions for Marlene. And, maybe Marlene, you can give some tips also of how, if someone is is homeless, how do you get them to get treatment? How do you get, the way you talked about getting Karen Scott Booth to help you, and maybe, doing the chronological data to put in the in the form 2.
Collateral.
And also, did you, I'm curious to know, did you use box B on form 2?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
A lot of people don't know about the box B, so I'm just wondering.
Yes, there's box A, box B.
Okay.
I also had a lawyer that reached out to me and helped me with the filing of a form 2 twice. He had his assistant that went to the courts and filed the form for us. It's really hard to do things long distance, but I tell you, people came out of the woodwork and wanted to help. People would just say, what can I do to help? And I mean, this just amazed me. It's just like, I asked people to pray for this situation because we needed a miracle, and we got our miracle. But, I think throughout the whole year, God opened one door, and then something would happen, and then another door would open, and doors keep continuing to open. And I think that the PC party is going to do the right thing in the spring, and they're going to do the amendment.
That's fabulous. Before we open up the floor, and I hope it does, and I hope everyone signs a petition, and your petitions, getting Andrew help in Ontario certainly did help. And also your media attention was incredible. How did that come about before we open up?
Well, there was about 3 or 4 stations in Toronto that contacted me, and also the Globe and Mail had a story on it. And then most recently, I had an interview with Matt Galloway on CBC The Current. So I guess word is getting around about this story. I think it's it's almost, I would call it, Hallmark story, where things were going so bad, and now finally we have come to a happy place in our lives. And the thing is that mental illness can happen to anybody. And so I think that this story has opened a lot of eyes. And I think that the media is realizing that, this is a story that's worthy of the media waves. So it's been on TV and, of course, in the newspaper and radio and your online news. And it's been in blogs. It's been in newsletters that go to the politicians. Kathleen Menaki, is it?
Yes.
Has been wonderful. She's been including Andrew's story in her newsletter many, many, many times. So I really want to say a big thank you to her and to Marvin Ross for the blog. He's included Andrew as well.
And if anyone wants any of these blogs, I do get these emails. I do actually run some of the stories in my emails, and I'll put my email at the bottom if you don't get my emails. I run a support group twice a month, sometimes 3 times a month. And I do have a speaker series. So each month I highlight a story of someone with lived experience who has made a difference in their families' lives or in their life. The last person we had was Leslie McCaig from Nova Scotia. She had schizophrenia and had some substance abuse issues in the past. And now she is a psychotherapist in Nova Scotia. And recently we had a sibling who, a family member, has a brother with schizophrenia. And she talked about her experience becoming a social worker, helping others, like because no one helped her family. And it was a really, really wonderful story. She's working now on a crisis team, helping other families and making sure that they get the help and make sure that they're being heard. And so we have wonderful speakers, and I'm thrilled to have Marlene tonight. It's a privilege. And I would like to open up the floor to anyone who would like to ask Marlene questions.
Was Andrew ever aware of his illness?
It's actually a symptom of mental illness. So to answer your question, Andrew never knew that he was mentally ill. And to this day will, if you asked him, are there any medical conditions that we should be aware of? He would say no, because he does not recognize that he's got the mental illness. That's all part of it. Now, eventually, if he gets, full capacity, we're hoping that he will recognize so that he'll understand that he has to stay on his medications to remain well.
With the clozapine, how is Andrew doing with blood tests?
Fine so far. Yes, he's handling it. I'll use the word nicely. If that clozapine has got lots of very bad symptoms, as Joni said, but no, the major thing that Andrew complains about is being very tired. Until about noon the next day, he finds himself very draggy. Yeah.
Are the doctors at the hospital not legally allowed to do the CTO?
No, it's a new legislation that just went through in November. And instead of doing it, what I would call the right way, like New Brunswick did, it was, I've been asking the politicians to give me an answer of why they chose this restrictive community treatment order. No one has given me an answer. So I find that baffling. I just want to know why it was chosen over the very flexible New Brunswick community treatment order. I'm hoping that someone from PEI government contacts me, because I think that Islanders deserve to know why they were shortchanged on the community treatment order.
My son had a CTO and then it expired. He disengaged and he's quite ill now.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear that. I know it's you have to, as they say, wear the moccasins to understand all the agony that's associated. It's not just the person who has the mental illness, it's the loved one, the families that suffer along, trying to get them supports. And it's a battle. It's a real battle. And you have to be you have to be an advocate, and you have to fight. If you don't, your loved one's never going to get the help.
I made a promise to my son that I wouldn't have him hospitalized anymore. I've had to break that promise and I feel guilty about it.
I know people that have been hospitalized anywhere between 10 and 20 times. And when I asked the doctor, why does that have to happen? And they said, it's a numbers game. The more that you get to a hospital, the more that they see that you've been in the hospital, you've been trying to get help. And the more psychiatrists that you see, maybe you'll get that lucky one like Marlene did. And they took an interest in your family member. But to make that promise, I think all of us as caregivers have made that promise to our family member. And once they deteriorate, I mean, I'm not sure how you keep that promise, because you want to keep them safe. And there's so many family members that track their family members on their phone, on their wallets with these tags. There's so many
Yeah.
ways to try to keep connected. And and I'm sure, and then this as well, because the LEAP approach by Dr. Amador, just keep the conversation going and keep it open
Yeah.
and just try to work with them. But once, it's a brain illness, and once the brain isn't working, no matter what you do and how many promises you keep, they won't even know it. They won't remember. They'll be unfortunately, they'll get too unwell for you to even sometimes communicate. And you've been there. Everyone's been there before. So there are crisis teams in Toronto that you can call, and they can come maybe do a wellness check or just check to see how everything went, how he's doing. There's the clozapine for people who are on clozapine. There's a clozapine clinic that you can get your psychiatrist to refer you and get a consultation to see if there's any ways of your psychiatrist to work with the clozapine clinic to mitigate side effects. There is the MAPS program at CAMH. I know you're not crazy about CAMH, Marlene, but that's where it is.
Love them. I just love them.
Yeah, me too.
I'm in the same boat. So
Yeah.
but they have the MAPS program where they will help with metabolic issues. But it's tough. Anyone else would like to share their story? Because there are some people I know that are homeless right now. Family members that have people who are homeless right now, people who are incarcerated, people that are missing. So it is tough, and we just want to keep our families safe. And how do we do it? And I think Marlene, maybe you can help us advocate for our family members. I belong to Mothers for Mental Health Reform, or group of mothers that are trying to help change the way people look at our anosognosia, our little insight, try to educate. But we need more people. There are many more organizations around Ontario and Canada that are trying to advocate for change. But unfortunately, it's very hard to change laws. So we have to probably educate and change the people that we're dealing with, whether it's the psychiatrists, the hospitals, or the social workers, psychologists, and help educate our families and end the stigma. Because what I get from families all the time, they say, "Oh, we can't tell our family members." They'll think, they have a brand new little baby. They'll think that my son or daughter is going to hurt their child. And I said, why? I said, why would they hurt them? If you don't sell look at how well your son or daughter's doing. They're working out, have a part-time job. We have to educate our family, friends, and the community that this is just a brain disorder, and people do get better and live a wonderful life.
I admire you, and I'm so glad that you're sharing your story with us.
Well, thank you. I hope that I have inspired any parents to never give up. Never, ever give up. I know we could have thrown our arms up many times.
Totally.
But never give up, because there's always a hope.
I try to bring many success stories, because there are lovely success stories. And when I send an email, my email is jjjrichca@gmail.com. I will send you lots of resources of hope, people that who are surviving, thriving, and doing well, who have schizophrenia and bipolar depression. And it's hope. You have to have hope, and everything is possible. Anything is possible. And I can tell you, with my own family member, it's been a long journey. However, they're a peer support worker, volunteering on a crisis line, working out, having lots of friends, and leading a very fulfilled life at this moment. And the future is looking great. There are many people that in my caregiver group that people are working, going to school. And it's a long road and it takes a long time for the memory to the brain to heal when you're on medication. And you
Yeah.
do need some other adjunct therapies as well for some of the side effects. But don't give up hope. And you're as one person that I spoke to who had psychosis for many years, and he said to his mom, "Don't give up on me when I'm in there. When I have psychosis or I have a catatonia, I'm here. I'm yelling to you, saying, 'I'm here. Don't give up on me.' I'm the same person, but you just have to get to know the new me." And that's true. That's well, the person that we knew before is not going to be the same person that they are now. So you have to get to know the new person, and perhaps sometimes grieve what you wanted them to be and be thankful where they are now and to celebrate their successes.
Somebody put a note there. How did I keep my sanity?
Yeah, I was just going to show you, and that same person said, "I applaud your strength and determination."
Through the stressful times, yes, it was very stressful. But I would take naps now and again when I get, when I had time to take a nap. But also, I tried to go for massages more frequently, and that seemed to calm me down. And basically, that my self-care was not very good. I'm guilty as charged, not very good. But right now, we belong to a peer support group with Canadian Mental Health. And so I'm getting down to business now and taking some self-care that I neglected.
Marlene, I actually don't know when you do those blogs, and so can you tell us your schedule? Because I'm at loss, because these blogs are very, very long, and you have pictures and you have updates and you have current information and you have your petitions, and how do you do it? Like, when do you sleep, or
Yes.
how do you put this together? And how
Well,
can
these Facebook posts, I developed the theme the night before. So today my theme was on cookies. And so my first idiom was, about the cookie crumble, oh, you're a tough cookie. You're a tough cookie. So I said I was guilty as charged because people have called me a tough cookie, for being able to withstand all of everything that's gone on. And, but cookie crumbles. Yes, people get into things that, you never planned on happening, but that's the way the cookie crumbles, right? So that theme was in my head and got down today. Tomorrow, I'm thinking about more on decisions and consequences. That's going to be what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. And I've done a little bit of research about that. And I found the appropriate images, as you mentioned, Joni, to go with it. I haven't found a song because that's kind of a hard title to research for a song. It's the other day now I posted about kindness. So that's an easy one to find, but or to be somebody's friend. That's easy to find. But tomorrow, I think that I hope that you find my Facebook post interesting. I have people that tell me that they read them every day. So, I try to make them interesting, informative, and so people are following me like crazy. So I'm very pleased that they're following Andrew and his success story at this point.
what is your Facebook account?
Post. It's under Marlene Bryenton, Marlene, and my last name is spelled Bryenton. And also, I'm a children's storybook author. So under Facebook, you can find under Marlene Bryenton, children's author, and you can find what I'm doing there in that other side of my life.
and I post a lot of her blogs all the time and mention all her petitions and writing to Andrew and her songs. And I have to say that I think I'm a stalker because I wake up in the morning and my family says, hi. I said, oh, I can't talk to you. I have to see what Marlene wrote. So now I promised my family to say hello. Okay, I have to go look at my Facebook post. But you give us inspiration. You believe in miracles, and it is a miracle that Andrew is back home with you. But it shouldn't have to take that much work to get help for your son or to all of our kids. And you've paved a way. Like people always say, I have to join a group, I have to figure out how to advocate, how to lobby. Well, you figured out a one-woman show who now you're gonna have, I hate to say it, but thousands of people now following you and asking for your advice. And perhaps we will put you on Ask Marlene on my emails, and
Oh.
and you can give us your advice.
Well, it's I'm still actually in the kind of the fragile stage, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I'm still fighting quite a battle. So I think, I do want to help people, but maybe when I get a little stronger myself, like, give me a few months to get my sea legs under me again. And, and I'd be more than willing to do that.
Mhm. Well, not right now, because you still have the battle of getting
do.
Andrew and the petition.
Yes.
And I just hope that Andrew one day will realize how lucky he is to have a mother like you, and that how hard you fought to get him the right treatment, to get him home from PI, because I don't think has ever been done. I don't know if it has, but I haven't. I know families that have tried it and have failed. So, I mean, kudos to you. And we just have to think positive. And if someone said, keep the lines of communication open with your family member, work together. It's not hopeless. They're in there, and you just have to help find their way home. And, as family members, we will never give up on our kids.
That's right.
And we will love them, whoever they are now and whoever they are going to be in the future.
I just wanted to say, Joni, I want to welcome my sister who just joined from Calgary. And my sister edits all of my posts every day. She tells me what's spelled wrong. She tells me that I need commas and periods. And so I count on my sister. Thank you so much, Joanne, for joining.
Are you the older or the younger sister?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Joanne is younger. Can you unmute?
Yeah, I'm good. Well, Marlene, I didn't know she was such a fighter, but oh my God, I'm so proud of her. Who would ever think that Andrew would come up with all these problems? But you know what? There is hope for him, and Marlene believes that, and we all believe that. And there's a lot of Andrews out there that need to be loved by their families and need help getting to the right place in order to move forward. Proud of you, Marlene.
Thank you, Joanne.
Even if you do make mistakes sometimes.
Well, thank you. And you once shared Darlene Hamby a book poem, and it says, I have a choice each and every day of my life. I choose to feel blessed. I choose to feel grateful. I choose to be excited. I choose to be thankful. I choose to be happy. I choose to smile and thank God for the beautiful blessings called life. And I just thought that was just beautiful. Because we have to be grateful for each and every day and thankful. And one person said to me, we are chosen. And we are chosen because we are able to handle what we have been given. And just to keep on going and fighting and be thankful for each and every day that we can hug and kiss our kids, or call them or be a lifeline to them, because it is so important. Sometimes they have no one else except us. Their friends abandon them, families abandon them, extended families. So we are the ones that they count on. And so we have to make ourselves heard, and to get the best help and advocate together for help to get change. And Marlene, what are your parting words to all of us?
Well, I've had some friends on the island, and also Ontario that sent me some special gifts. And this is a special gift that I received. In closing, I want to say that I am very grateful. I am very, very grateful for everything that everybody has done to help me. I'm very thankful for the way that things have turned out. Also, our family is very blessed because we now have our son back, and we can only hope that Andrew's going to have a bright future and that somehow we're going to get this amendment for the community treatment order.
And we will all sign petitions. I'll keep sending it out. Write letters to Andrew, and just believe in miracles, because Marlene, one day I think a book and a feature film will be around the corner, but not too soon, maybe a couple years down the road. But you are an inspirational, you're a warrior. Mama Bear will never give up. And so we take your lead, and we will never give up either. And thank you so much for joining our family speaker series. It's a privilege to have you. And thank you so much for your wisdom.
You're more than welcome,
Right.
Joni. And thanks to everybody for joining.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if you
Thanks,
want to
Joni.
find out more about Marlene, you can email me. And to learn more about our programs, we have our programs for caregivers, our programs for family members. We have a recreation therapist who takes out our our individuals with mental health challenges. We have a peer support worker, myself, who's a family navigator. I arrange speakers throughout the year. We have caregiver luncheons, as well as caregiver get-togethers. So join us whenever you can, and follow Marlene's blog, and I will send out all the information and some of the resources that she has talked about tonight. And thank you, everyone. And I pray for miracles for all our families. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.